Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jon Stevenson along with Bishop Ransom. We're here with another installment of the Nehemiah Project podcast, where we kind of fuse some of the biblical principles and ideas and worldview into contemporary political topics. And we do so for the benefit of the community. And so if you've been here, if you've listened to any of our podcasts before, with their sprawling conversations that touch on everything. And we expect today to be no different. So thank you for coming on, Bishop Ransom. So good seeing you.
Man, always. It's a joy to do this with you. And I look forward to continuing this, man.
Yeah.
We have some tremendous conversations and we bounce off each other pretty well. So
no script.
Yeah.
We just roll.
Man,
we just roll.
We just keep it going.
Right,
so let's get into it and see where we go with this one today.
You had an event, a big event.
Yeah.
What was it? What was it for? Who was there?
Well, we had an event last Saturday at the MLK Senior Center.
Okay.
There on Cary and Martin Luther King Boulevard. I happen to be the chair of the Political Action Social Justice Committee for the NAACP for the Las Vegas branch.
Okay.
Of course, our president is Quentin Sanois. And of course, he privileged us to be able to put this event together. I thought it would be great because we're winding down into the political season. Many of the down ballot races, many times we don't give it the energy and the attention that it deserves, especially because it runs concurrent with the presidential races. And so a lot of times people are so engaged into the presidential races that they kind of forget what I think is really the heartbeat that touches us, and that's the down ballot races.
Right.
And so I thought we would put together a last candidates forum, giving the candidates the last opportunity to share their platform and introduce themselves to maybe those that were not familiar or have not been familiar with them, and give them an opportunity to just give their last words. And so that's what we had.
Okay.
We actually were only planning to have at one point about 13 candidates. That's including the judges, the legislators, state legislators, and of course the Board of Education, Board of Regents candidates, and a couple other that we had, right? But we ended up having about 22, 23 candidates that swung through and came by. They set up their products and their materials, and set up their tables, and
do each of them speak?
And each one of them spoke. We gave them opportunity.
All 22.
Right. So what we did was we wanted to make this not just a forum where they would talk, because I know they've been going around the whole valley, right? In some cases, their districts, and they've been doing their thing and presenting their platforms. So we wanted to also make this an educational piece.
Okay.
So what we did was in the first half of it, we had President Quentin. He did a voter education presentation, which he's been doing across the city in various areas, right? And so he presented that. The second thing that we did was we had Dr. Cosgrove come through and give explanation of the 7 ballot initiatives, right? Because of course, when you finally educate yourself on the candidates to vote for, then you come across these ballot initiatives,
these referendums.
They're worded so funny and so crazy that you're saying yes to something you should have said no to, and something you should have said no to, you're saying yes to. So we wanted to educate them and inform those that were in attendance of, these are the reasons for the ballot initiative. This is what the ballot initiative is saying. And so if you vote yes, you're voting for this. If you vote no, you're voting for that. So we used that time to do that. And then finally, we had all of the candidates that were present. And if I can remember in my mind, of course, we were favored to have the mayoral candidate, Shelley Berkeley, came. And so, of course, she gave her her last final words or whatever. And then, of course, we had Dina Neal. Of course, Dina Neal, Senator Neal, doesn't have a candidate, but I say, hey, girl, I need you to swing by and just, talk to us, right? She came through. Then we had District 6, the Assembly for District 6. Those candidates came. We had the Senate District number 1. Those candidates came. Senate District 17, no, Assembly District 17, they came. Then we had several judges from North Las Vegas as well as Las Vegas. We also had the trustee candidates running for the Clark County Trustee Board, as well as the Region Board of Regents. They came. We also had a couple of candidates out of Henderson that's running for city council. So we had really Henderson, North Las Vegas, Las Vegas, had the Valley. And it was a tremendous turnout. So from there, we're looking to do something, to keep the momentum. But I want to say this. What was so phenomenal about this particular event was because we had several partners that partnered with NAACP on this event. These focus groups and leaders of the community organizations, some of them were community activists that joined in with us. I think we had a good 12 to 13 partners that partnered in with us, and they were very instrumental in, contacting the candidates and getting them to come out and helping us to strategize and plan this and organize it. And it was, almost seamless. And we pivot and we did everything that we needed to do. And it was a tremendous success.
That's awesome. So what, if anything, was an aha moment takeaway for you, that when you heard something, you're like, oh, hadn't thought about that. That's a really good insight. Where you knew in the moment, one or several candidates might have educated you on something that you hadn't thought about or you didn't know?
Well, for me, it really wasn't so much education for me. I think for those that were in attendance, because we, being at the MLK Senior Center, where a lot of the seniors gather and they come together. I want to give a shout out to Mr. Byron Goins, who's the director there. And of course, he put the word out in the center. And so, of course, many of those that normally come to the center came in and they were part of it and they participated. And so I think for them, it was very educationally informative. For many of them, they were introduced to some of the candidates. Now, for me, I've been to all of these candidate forums across the South Valley, right? From starting from January 2nd, right, up through
so not much,
now,
nothing terribly new.
So nothing different, nothing new. I've been a part of the presentation of the voter education piece, so I was very knowledgeable of that particular presentation. What some people don't know is I served too as an advisor for the Secretary of State, their participatory democracy for fair elections, and so I'm sit on that particular board. And so our Secretary of State came out and he shared and he educated. So I've been in all of these spaces, but I think for those that were present, that never had this opportunity to be in these kind of spaces and to hear these candidates one-on-one in person, I think for them it was something that was very advantageous for them.
So was it an opportunity to dialogue with them, or was it, or just each person did each candidate have an opportunity to just present?
So what we did was, now the original plan was somewhere in there we wanted to have some kind of question, the Q&A, but we were trying to get it, within a time limit of about 2.5 hours. So what we did was, which I think it really still worked out, because again, it was the candidates' last words. So basically the candidates just gave their 2.5 minute spiel. And of course, you know, when you tell candidates to give a 2.5 minute spiel, that usually turns into about 4 minutes, right?
Right.
So, but it still was timely. It still was on point. And they came and based on what race they were running in, if they had a candidate running in that race, then of course they just gave their spiel, gave why they're running, why they're the best candidate for the job. And it turned out good, man.
Good. What was the best part of the event?
For me, the best part of the event was the collaboration, the partnership, the coming together. One of the things that being from I've had the privilege to live in 3 regions of the country. The only part of this country I haven't lived in is in the South, but I've traveled in the South. I've worked in the South. As you know, as a preacher and evangelist, I've traveled for years in cities in the South, states in the South, but I've lived in the Midwest. I was raised and born in Michigan, in Detroit. I lived in New Jersey, pastored in Philadelphia. I pastored in California, so I lived in the West. So I'm kind of understand the dynamics. But when it comes to the West or the West Coast or the West side of the country, it seems that we're missing the collaboration.
Okay.
We're missing the unity. You go Midwest, Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, many of those organizers and Black organizers and advocates and community leaders and pastors will come together. They will unite. Matter of fact, I don't know if you've watched the news from a nation's perspective, but Chicago just had a challenge with their school board, right? So when they had their press conference, in the background, all you saw was all of the leading pastors and community leaders that now have come together to help to resolve this issue.
And it's going to be when they show up, it's going to be resolved.
And it's going to be resolved.
It's going to be resolved.
You get the same identical thing in the East, right? New York, Philadelphia. They're going to come together on whatever issues is necessary to help to resolve them. And they show their solidarity. They show their unity. It's not till you come to the West, even in the South, you're going to get the same thing, right? It's not till you come to the West that you end up having the silo mentality.
Gotcha.
So everybody's doing their own thing. They have their own mission statement. It's hard to bring them together. It's hard to get them to collaborate. It's hard to get them to unify because you have this, everybody wants to be the king of the mountain, you know, so you got, everybody wants to be a leader. Nobody wants to be a follower. But for us, because we're 9%, I think it is, African Americans, 9% or something like that, in the state of Nevada. We're not a large concentration, right? So the secret with us is, or the strategy for us is uniting, coming together, showing forces. Governments respond to numbers, right? People respond to numbers. But when you don't have those numbers cohesive, and there's always this division, silos, then you can't get a lot done. I'm of the opinion to believe that's why the historical West has sat dormant and have sat decaying for almost 50, if not almost 55 years, because for some reason we can't get enough of us to come together and unify. But for me, the takeaway was the collaboration.
Gotcha.
These partners of their organizations, we all came together. We worked this thing together. And to be honest with you, we didn't have but about maybe less than 40 days to put this event together.
You put it together quickly.
Put it together very quickly.
Yeah.
And they were very cooperative. Everybody worked together. They lended their talents, their information. They provided us their connections because that's how that was able to work. I caught myself trying to pull them in, or those that I knew had certain connections and networks and relationships, and they were very freely release their networks and release their connections to us, and that's what helped us to make it work.
Gotcha. Will you do this again? And if so, what changes might you make to the last one? What changes might you make to the next one?
Well, what's been setting in my mind, and I'm still trying to figure all of the moving pieces and put them together. But everybody was excited after this was over. They raved about it. They thought this was a good thing. Wanted to do something again. I think it would be good to put some type of forum together, moving after the election has ended, because now we know who's in the postures and the places and positions. Now we know who's the mayor. We know who's the senator of our district. We're going to know who's the council person for our district or whatever, or ward. And so I was just, thinking collaboratively, bringing those same partners together, maybe adding some. I know some wanted to even be included in the next event, and sitting these candidates down and presenting to them the agenda of the community.
Okay.
I think one of the things that have been, or mistakes that have been made in the past, is that the legislators and council people go into their positions trying to create an agenda that they think the community wants, and many times it's based on their passion. So a lot of times I'm going in trying to write a bill because this is my passion. I have a passion for mental health, right? Because my mother, passed, had dementia. So that becomes my passion, but that might not be the priority of the community.
Right.
And so therefore, because we don't provide a platform as a community and as community leaders and an agenda to present to our legislators, we leave them to make the call. And in many times, they don't make the call that is advantageous for the community. So I think the next event, trying to put the strategies and pieces together, is somehow now presenting an agenda and a platform that we can then present to the candidates. We sat and listened to you for the last 11 months, right? Of what you're going to do, what you would do if you got there, blah, 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 blah. But now I think it's time for them to listen to the community and community leaders and the vanguards of the community, and then hear what the platform is and the agendas and the priorities that we would want you to fight for.
How does that come together? The coalition of people who have a sense, a feeling, or an opinion about what should be on the agenda and what should be the priorities. How do you pull those folks together to have that conversation?
Now that's where the moving pieces are, and I think it'll take a couple of think tank sessions and strategy sessions. Naturally, you have room of different leaders that have different mission statements for their particular organization. So they have certain passions and priorities that they would like to see. But I think the key is trying to find what I often call the common thread. We all agree, we won't deal with stuff that, you got a passion for this, you got a passion for that. Your issue is this, my issue is that. But we all can agree on certain things. Clark County Board of Education is just jacked, right? We all can agree on that. 47th on the list.
They struggle.
And that's struggling. So we know that's a problem, and we all agree that's a problem. So that could be an issue that we could prioritize. We all know that rent is just astronomically outrageous, right? We all agree. Somehow we're all being affected by it, whether it's through the high rent costs or it's through the high housing costs. We know that housing is a problem in Nevada. and that's an issue. Again, I think all of us, a majority of us, can agree. So that's a priority. So I think we would look for those, discuss those areas of priority or areas that we all agree on, and then we could prioritize them.
Gotcha.
And I think, you probably would come up with a good 5.
I was wondering what number you.
Yeah, you probably would come up with a good 5. You figure legislation is only in session 4 months,
right,
every 2 years, 120 days, maybe 135 if it goes over. So naturally, you want to put the top 5, in their face. So these are the top 5 that you work hard for. Now, other bills that they're going to have to work on in legislation, they have to figure that out, because you got other bills from other sides of the aisle that you got to work with. Legislation, I think, is very tedious work, even with the city council. City council doesn't have as many voices to deal with and to negotiate with, but yet and still, they still have to make their decision. And I think, with the city council, they have a little bit more hands-on control, because you're over your ward.
Exactly.
You're responsible for your ward.
Exactly.
Right. So, but I think they need an agenda as well. So, okay, what you're going to do, how you're going to help our community get funding, so that we can have economic development to build moderate to manageable housing, affordable housing. We use the word affordable, but whenever Black people say affordable housing, that's subsidized, type of housing, Section 8.
Right.
But the new terminology is, manageable housing, reasonable housing. So that it provides a safe spot, a safe neighborhood. It's a house that the average person would want to work to live in. So but those are the, I think that's how you kind of come to that agreement with those minds, is just finding the common thread of the issues that we all agree that we know needs to be dealt with and resolved.
Is there so organizations like City Las Vegas or UNLV, they have government affairs directors, basically their own lobbyists.
Okay.
And so City Las Vegas has their own and not they're lobbyists in function, but not in title. But they know the landscape of the legislature, and they know, how to craft a bill, who to partner with, which legislator to bring this to. Does the NAACP or National Action Network, do they have something similar to that, like a in-house, government affairs lobbyist kind of person? And I wonder if those are the folks that could help with really fine-tuning those agendas.
I know NAACP has a couple. Matter of fact, the president and the vice president usually go in as lobbyists, or doing legislation session. They're there to help those legislators kind of push the bill through, help them to write the bill, whatever the case might be. So I do know that, because they were a part of the session last term. And so most likely they're probably going to participate again. I do think that our community do need more lobbyists.
Because they're experts.
Because they're experts. They know who to talk. They know the language.
And at what level?
At
is
what
it a
level?
City problem? Is it a county problem? Is it a state problem? Is it a federal problem? Because we might pick a topic and it turns out it's federal all day long. So why are you yelling at the county commissioner?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So but I think we have individuals that we can call on or pull on to be able to posture them, if you will,
or at least help with this priority,
or at least help with the priority piece. That's something that I think we do have available.
Okay, because I love the idea of okay, we met with you candidates before, before the election, ostensibly, platforming you, create a connection. We have a pipeline now. We have a communication pipeline. We want to follow up with you, with these priorities. And not only do we want to see, how you might address it, but we also want to see how we can help you address it. Because with the sway and the power and the gravitas and the historicity of a NAACP and a National Action Network, it sounds like they can make for awesome partners if everybody can be on the same page about the priorities.
Listen, we've had this conversation. I've had this conversation just recently.
Okay.
The two strongest Black civil rights organizations, especially in Las Vegas, right now, is NAACP-NAN, National Action Network. And what strength would that show if those two collaborated? And that's why I say the great takeaway was because NAACP and NAN were a part of the event.
Right.
So NAN came in, Dr. Bush came in as a partner and brought in NAN into the space, right? And again, man, when you can bring especially Black organizations, and there's that unity dynamic.
Absolutely.
It speaks volumes. It speaks everybody wants to be a part of something that looks like it's working or it's winning, right? So, just think about Black Lives Matter, right? When Black Lives Matter first got started, you just had a bunch of seemingly angry Black young people, right? But when they begin to come together and they start strengthening themselves, then all of a sudden you had white organizations that wanted to be a part, and they now were a part of the Black Lives Matter movement, and helping to fuel it, which what gave it its thrust, right? It's almost kind of the same thing with Dr. King, the civil rights. As long as you had a bunch of Black folk, walking and protesting, it struggled, right? But finally, when Dr. King went and started, looking for help from his white constituents, the Jewish,
Catholic, Jewish,
then all of a sudden,
of all types.
The civil rights movement took a different thrust, right?
When the artists show up, when
the
actors showed up,
actors
and
showed
the priests showed up,
Absolutely.
and the rabbis showed up, and the college students showed up.
Absolutely, it took a different thrust. And I think if the establishment, if I can use that word, when the establishment sees the unity and the success of the unity and the passion of the unity working in concert, then the establishment, you're going to get some people from the establishment that wants to participate and wants to help push it and wants to help make it work and wants to. Now you see what our dilemma is. So now you want to help us in our dilemma because you see the unity. And I don't care what nobody say, man. Numbers gets people's attention. When you got a building with 3 people in it, how many people really going to come and stay and support? But if I come to a building where there's 500 people, now wow, okay, must be something happening. So I think that's the niche. And for me, I'm always been that kind of guy, man. I've always been the guy that wanted to try to figure out ways to make sure that we come together, that we unify, that we, get on the same page. We ain't gonna always agree on everything.
No.
You
do, somebody's true.
Yeah, exactly. But there are things that we can agree on, right? And those things that we do agree on, that's what we work to achieve and to push, so that our community benefits, man.
Absolutely. It's interesting when you mention about the civil rights movement. Obstacle removing sometimes goes both ways. In that there was I remember seeing a documentary where John Kennedy, told Dr. King, that he supports the civil rights movement, but he needs Dr. King to help make him sign civil rights legislation. Basically, what it's saying is help clear a path so I can sign this.
Right.
And that's exactly what King and the civil rights movement did. They were able to successfully, force JFK's hand, which is what he wanted, which provided that political cover.
Right.
Because he knew that doing it unilaterally, it could go wrong for him.
Right.
But the effect of the civil rights movement was they were able to force a friendly hand, to sign off on the civil rights, pieces.
Yeah, and I think the same thing.
Johnson Rather. Sorry.
I think it's the same thing with here in Nevada. I think we can force some things to happen, but we can't force it if it's silo.
Agreed.
We can't. You're not going to get nothing done. And again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news or seem like I'm the outsider that just came in to Nevada and I'm kind of, talking down to it or throwing shade, but facts are facts.
And an outside perspective is beneficial.
Yes, and and I think that's why. And I've studied the history. I'm listening to the history. I'm studying the history of Las Vegas. And the challenge is that there is no collaboration. There is no unity. So you don't have the numbers. And so when you don't have the numbers, you can't get the establishment's attention. You can't demand. Gotcha. That's basically what you said. He forced Johnson's hand. He forced President Johnson's hand.
Which is what he wanted.
Which is what he wanted. Because he knew he couldn't just come out and do it, being a Southerner from Texas, right in the 60s. And then you're just going to willingly sign a civil rights bill or a voting rights bill. So he had to be forced to do it. King continued to force his hand, but he forced it by getting numbers, which eventually, when the establishment, many of those white Caucasian leaders from various establishments joined in, it gave it the thrust. I still believe it can work here.
I do too.
I think it can work when they see the unity. But
it's probably the only way to work. With 10% of a population.
Yeah, that's all we got, man.
You don't force much.
You can't force much on a single. You doing your thing, I'm doing my thing. You over here creating your 4 followers. I got my 10 followers, but then you're demanding the office of the mayor to do X, Y, and Z. You're demanding city council to change a code, and you're not gonna get much done.
A loud solo voice is a nuisance.
It's true.
A loud population is a movement.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, you explained that excellent. I like that. I'm gonna have to put that in one of my sermons.
Take it.
Yeah. A loud single voice is a nuisance.
You see him.
That's true.
Not to pick up, but you see him show up at a council meeting or a commissioner's meeting, and they say their 2 cents, and they're loud. They're podium pounding. It's a nuisance.
Yeah, and nobody's paying them attention. Matter of fact, you're
tolerating them.
You're tolerating them, and if they get too much more louder, you're ultimately going to have them escorted out. So you haven't gotten anything accomplished.
But a loud voice is a group or a collaboration.
Yeah,
that's a movement.
That's a movement.
That's a movement.
And I think we're in that. I think we're in that season. Many of the vanguards are. The senior statesmen and senior vanguards are getting up in age now. They've paved the way. They've brought to the table a lot. They've opened our eyes to a lot. But now we've got younger leaders that are coming along, and they're providing more relevant strategies. But what I see missing is the coming together, is the unity dynamic.
Right.
Now, if you brought all of that innovativeness and all of that strategy, energy, and the creativity, the passion, and then you could somehow harness that and kind of lasso it so that it unifies itself, man, I think we could get some things done. I think we could shut down some things. I think we can make our voice heard concerning the high cost of rent,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the marketing, the housing market, where we've got, you know, billionaire CEOs of these corporations is coming and driving up the market,
Mm-hmm.
you know, costs, man. The average person, hardworking guy, right, is not going to be able to even be a first-time homeowner,
Okay.
because he can't afford it. When I first got to the city in 2020, and I came right before pandemic hit, you know, the housing market, you still could get a house here for 275, maybe 325, and they were building them from the ground up, subdivisions,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, them same houses now that they're building subdivisions, they ain't but 2,900 square feet.
Right.
Some of them not even 3,000 square feet, and you charging me $485,000,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to buy this home.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we could make an impact if we had the unity. Bishop McDonald, my bishop, and often says, you know, you can take, you know, if you try to put your finger through the wall, you'll break it. But if you ball your fingers up, you make a fist.
Mm-hmm.
You have more of a possibility of putting your fist through the
Now it's a fair
wall.
fight.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that's where we at, man. So I'm trying, you know, President Quinton has given me the opportunity to provide him with strategies as the chair of the political action and social justice committee, and he's allowed me the opportunity to, you know, try my best to put things together that would be advantageous, you know, in representing that committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, these are some events, the things that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
It can help us politically. It can help our community. It can bring together a unity that we can unify our community, man, and get some things done.
So here's what I'm hopeful for, and tell me if this seems like it could be on the menu. I'm hopeful for an opportunity of the collaboration between the leadership and the political electeds, and I'm thinking as an example of a judge, and so a judge is looking at a mandatory sentence, you know, for criminal charge, you know, people who are charged criminally, whatever.
Okay.
But but in their heart of hearts, they're no fan of that mandatory sentence at all. What I'm hoping is that same judge can come to you all and say, like, I'm stuck. I need your help here because these mandatory sentences for this particular crime, you know, this is where I need you, you know, to lean on, the assemblymen or the legislators and see if you can change that. You know, I'm your partner, but now I need to deploy you, you know, to help change this. You know, judges should have latitude, you know, with dealing with it because it's too complicated, you know, for a variety of reasons. So what I'm wondering, there was a long wind up to the question of, is there a way that this could forge a new kind of relationship with politicians who can turn and say, I hit an obstacle or I'm stuck. Can you help me get unstuck with this so that we can keep going with the priorities and the agenda?
I mean, I think I think that's a brilliant strategy. It's just a matter of how do you get these people to a table to actually have those kind of those kind of open and transparent conversations. Does a
The safe
judge,
space. How do they find?
yeah, and how's it a safe
psychological
space?
safety?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Because as a judge,
That's a relationship thing. That's
yeah, because I don't, you know, as a judge, I don't want to make it seem like I'm not in control of my courtroom.
Right.
So now I have to be transparent. I have to have a safe space. I have to, as you're saying, build all of these things tie together.
Right.
But I think we could get more done if again we have these conversations, man, and we have safe space. We just got to figure out how we can stop trying to, you know, advance ourselves,
right,
and advance our people.
Right.
You know, serving in these positions and postures, man, is about servitude.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jesus said that let the one that's the greatest among you, let him be the servant.
Right.
But a lot of times people get to the point where they become so postured and they get put in these high seats, right? That then now they become egocentric, they become narcissistic,
or they become skittish.
Oh yeah,
and panicked about now I can't talk to anybody about anything. I can't be transparent or open to anybody ever because I can't control the narrative anymore if I open my mouth.
Yeah, I would agree. How we would start that process, I'm not quite sure. I have a few kind of ideas in my head,
that would be
that you would have to play with, but but I think over time, we could figure that out, man. I think that would work. I think all these politicians ought to work together, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I know they want. I won't say I know they all, but I know of politicians that do want to solve problems. I just don't know how comfortable they feel telling their constituents, "I'm in a cul-de-sac now. I'm stuck," or "Can you help me get unstuck on this particular problem?" Now I can see judges that would say, "Look, these minimum sentences for a possession thing, they're ridiculous. But I'm a judge. I can do nothing about what the legislature does or does not do." And that's pick out marijuana as one. The way we're putting making everything sex registry eligible. Like apparently I didn't know this, but I heard the story of some kid. This is in the Henderson area, 17 years old. He's at a soccer practice. He runs over to the bushes, to go use the bathroom real quick. Apparently that's public lewdness, and he was, adjudicated a registered sex offender, 17 years old.
That's crazy.
I did not know that.
Are you serious?
I kid you not.
You know how we used to do that? You know how often we did that back in the day?
I know.
Because they didn't have no porta potties and all that. You just had to find a corner somewhere.
Right. So if I'm the judge,
are you serious?
I kid you not. So if I'm the judge, I'm like, I don't want to adjudicate that. I'm watching the prosecutor go through the motions of I got to prosecute. It's the law now, or whatever, that you can't you can't pee in public. I did not know that. Anyway, so I use that as an example of whereas if I'm the judge, and I feel like I'm speaking for the prosecutor too, like, hey, Bishop, can you please talk to NAACP and National Network? Anybody, can you get can we change this? Because we're putting we're making everybody a registered sex offender. You're 16 years old having
that's
sex with a 15-year-old.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know the number.
Makes no sense.
But I feel like as a society we use, and I don't know why I'm getting stuck on the legal side of it, but historically, criminal justice gets used as a revenge ploy.
Oh yeah. And so, man, I mean, we can just start with 45.
Right, exactly. But so it's a revenge ploy. And every ambitious politician who wants to say, I want to stick it to everyone who's jaywalked or whatever.
Man,
but it's going to take pastors like you to do the work in the trenches. The judge said, no, there's a place for mercy alongside justice.
Now, I think we would have to, the ethnic or ethical.
Ethical?
Yeah, the ethical responsibility of a judge. I think that would have to be, researched, or, the question asked is, okay, well, how far can you go as a judge to ask for this, that, or the other?
Right.
But you could never lose with pastors, man.
You shouldn't.
You can never. Pastors, to me, is the vanguards of any community.
Agreed. They're the counterbalance to the
absolutely
the counterbalance to the politician, because the politician has to go justice, 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 and the pastor would say mercy, mercy, mercy.
Right.
Make sure that mercy doesn't get lost, to the mob wanting whatever they think justice is.
Or even reverse. The pastor can be, hey, justice, justice, justice.
Agreed.
Y'all didn't do right.
Agreed.
Y'all need to get this correct. I think that the consortium of pastors have more power than they even realize. But because again, Dr. King said, the most segregated day of the week is on Sunday. because now, even though we don't want to be segregated every Sunday morning between 9 and whatever, 2 o'clock, we're segregated. You at your church, I'm at my church, but as pastors, I'm convinced you bring those guys together, you can make some things change, because you got to remember, pastors, they have congregations, and many of those congregants listen to the voice of their pastor.
Agreed.
So if their pastor says, I need y'all to get out and vote, majority, 90% of those people in there are going to figure out a way how to get out and vote.
Or if you, and building off my last, question, if a pastor says, cut Councilman so-and-so some slack on this one, he's hit a wall. He's not throwing shade. He's not ignoring your topic. Whatever. He's legit stuck. We've talked about this.
Right.
We have talked with
Commissioner
so-and-so. We have talked with Assembly so-and-so.
Right.
He's working on it. So whatever you're hearing in the barbershop or the beauty shop, set aside. We've talked to him. If you trust me, trust him or her.
Right. Exactly. And that's relationships is built with pastors.
Exactly.
Again, the Midwest, the South, they have relationships and collaborations with their politicians. And the politicians, in some cases, most of them, if you're going east, west, east, south, and north, most of them is at somebody's church. Right. So 9 times out of 10, their pastors would help to catapult them to win the election. But I think pastors, that's what's missing in this city. And the only thing that really brings these guys together, and Bishop McDonald had this vision, man, of the, bringing pastors together. So he put together the Shepherd's Breakfast, right? And that's a 30-day thing that just takes place consistently, right? And so we talked about the Nehemiah Project. That's part of the spiel of the podcast. And even right now, Bishop is trying to bring those guys together and really looking and trying to find out what they need to help to advance their ministries. Because, it's a historical West, right? So you got Second Baptist that's got all this land. You got Victory, got all this land. Many of the churches just got land. Now, again, ain't no shade, but I'm just my experience, man. Going up north, there's just no way you could be sitting on an acre of land, right? And for 40 years. And that acre of land they don't build something on it. A community center, apartment building, a school, something they're gonna build on it, right? But again, I get it. If you don't have the right politicians in your hip pocket, or if the council person is making alliances with people outside of the community and won't come into the community and connect with the leaders of the community, then of course the community leaders don't know if they can get the funding, where they get the funding from. Is this our friend? Is he going to block our project? Blase, blase, blase. But I think all of that has to work together. Bishop is telling them, I'm sharing with them, hey, you guys, let's put these people that we put in office, let's put the feet to the fire. Don't tell me all the things you can do, and then when you get in there, you don't do anything. Or when you get in there, now reminding you, for 11 months, you've been showing up in my community. You've been talking. You've been on the forum, right? Then once you get elected, we don't see you at none of these events. We don't see you in the community. You don't come around. You don't share with us what you're doing,
or what you need,
or the progress that's being made, or the non-progress that's being made. But I think if we could change those narratives, again, I think we could see some things done, see some things, accomplished, man. And I think the pastors are the key, because pastors can talk to anybody. Pastors can talk to presidents, presidents call for pastors.
Uh-huh.
Governors call for pastors. Whenever presidents get into a tight, they bring pastors to the White House. Executive order. You've got to come to the White House. Governors reach out to faith-based leaders and those that they trust. Mayors, city council. So I think the preacher is the link. He's the key. Especially in this community, because it's inundated with historical ministries, that these ministries have a voice.
Agreed.
They just have to bring those voices together.
They do. And to your point, when you think about it, politicians don't hire the people. The people hire the politicians.
Absolutely.
And if we hire the politicians, who better than our pastors to help manage, our employees?
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah, and somehow in the course of a decade or decades, we've allowed it to be reversed.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if the preacher is righteous, he brings not only accountability, but he has the ability to prick the conscience of the politician. The problem that we have now is that you have the Christian nationalists and the the right-wing evangelical people that they are just pushing a presidential agenda because you want to stay in power. You're not concerned about people, the poor, those that's less fortunate, the gospel.
You don't care about the gospel.
You don't care about nothing but just maintaining power.
Right.
I pray and hope that in my opinion, 45 had his chance. It's time for us to move on, because we're not going to go backwards. So we got to move forward. But the fear of the fact that you want the office, number one, in my opinion, for what I can see, you need the office so you stay out of jail.
Right.
Right. Because if you don't win, now you have these 34, felony counts that you have been charged with, that now justice system can come for you. But the sad part of it is that you want it for revenge purposes. So that if you get in, now it's the revenge of all the people that didn't vote for you or did whatever. But I'm praying, that God will give this nation peace and tranquility and victory. And hopefully we'll get someone that's in office that has a compassion and a heart for the nation and for the people. Man, we're struggling out here, and it's hard. Tuition. That's just astronomical. Healthcare, astronomical. Childcare, astronomical. I was just sitting down the other day and just frustrated because, you need transportation, so you need a car. In most cases, you're paying a car note, but you can't drive the car in Nevada without insurance. Insurance is astronomical.
Gas.
Then you've got gas. It's $4 and something a gallon. Then you have to maintenance the car. You have all of these expenses. Now that ain't including food, groceries. My wife says she spends about $250 that might last us 3 weeks, and it's just me and her. And how's all the kids are grown, right? $250 that lasts about 3 weeks. That's groceries. So that don't have nothing to do with a rent. That has nothing to do with rent insurance, or you have a mortgage, you have house insurance.
That assumes no setbacks.
None.
Because you don't have a lot of room for
don't have
setbacks.
no latitude.
Right.
None. So I'm praying. I'm praying as an intercessor, so that, you know, the country can have some type of tranquility, man, some type of rest. And so that we're not necessarily worrying about a dictator, you know, or somebody that's fascist. You know, it makes me nervous because you got person that's bumping up against dictators, man. You're taking your playbook from dictators. That's scary to me. That's scary to me. And to believe that you still have, think about this, man. Think about this. How many of us in here, even if we had the popularity and the charisma, how many of us, especially as African Americans, brown or black, would be able to run for the highest office with one felony versus a man that has 34? You know, if Obama had one felony, right, they would have thrown him under the jail. So, you know, it's a time where I think, you know, the preachers are vital now. They have to, you know, they have to be spiritual. They have to be righteous. They have to be cognizant of the times. The collaboration for preachers are important. I know you have your congregation here and there, and you have to minister to your congregants. All of the congregations are different, and they deal with people from a different perspective. But when it comes to leadership, the leaders have to really come together. 100%. And I think we could get some things done in this city.
100%. I'm gonna let that be the closeout. That was good stuff.
Good.
Bishop, as usual.
Man, it's always a pleasure. We do it.
I don't know. We don't know how to hit any singles or doubles, do we?
Yeah,
it's all home run.
Always.
It's always home run.
Always.
Well, thank you for your time.
Man, thank you, man.
Thank you all for sitting in and listening to this conversation. We'll do it again, and we're going to swing for the fence again. So we'll see you then.
Good.